Your blood runs orange and blue. This is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
Let's wrap the show talking about one of the Knicks that they did get in that trade for with Cam Reddish involved, and that was Josh Hart. So one of the Knicks' key free agents is Josh Hart coming into this offseason, but it is reported that he's expected to stay in New York, according to Michael Scotto and Ian Bailey. Scotto of Hoops Hype, Ian Bailey of SNY. Both of these guys were on the Hoops Hype podcast. They discussed Hart's future, and Scotto said that Hart will decline his $13 million option for next season, but he's expected to re-sign with the team on a 3 or 4 year deal. So both guys discussed Hart loving the fit in New York, the Knicks loving Hart's fit with the team, and Hart's connections to not just Jalen Brunson, but also Leon Rose, some of the other guys in the Knicks organization, all factor into a decision that they expect to be a 3 or 4 year deal for Josh Hart to stay in New York. So, Tommy, do you think that it is smart for the Knicks to commit to Hart long term?
Yeah, I think this is a guy, Hart's one of those players, and they're, you see him throughout the league, that you don't really appreciate him until you see him up close night after night after night after night.
Yeah.
If you play against him, you play him twice a year or at most 4 times a year. You think, wow, that guy's really good. But it's not like we have a huge, Hart's been on a, playoff contender every year. That's when, that we've seen, three rounds of playoff act. This is a lot of Knick fans' first kind of exposure to Josh Hart, maybe since he was playing for Villanova in the Big East. And he's everything you could have wanted, and then some. He just it's not just the rebounds; it's he rips rebounds down in traffic, from opposing centers and pushes the floor, and is kind of untapped and unlocked Obi Toppin in a way that we haven't seen since. His attitude, his toughness. Just fits in perfectly alongside Brunson and Tibbs and IQ, and the way he gets after it defensively, his high IQ, no pun intended, on the defensive end of the floor, switches, loose balls, diving into the stands. He's one of those guys. He's the highest compliment you can probably pay to any Knick today, current day Knick, is to say he would have thrived and could have fit in very well alongside the Knicks of the 90s, the Oakleys, the Masons, the Ewings, the Starks. And Hart is that type of player in so many respects. Unselfish, smart, tough, can make big shots in big moments. We've seen him hit some big 3-pointers in his first few games, even though he's not a great 3-point shooter. He makes them when he counts. We saw it just last night, the 2 free throws to seal the deal with 5 seconds left in Los Angeles. He's just a winning player, dating back to high school, dating back to national championships at Villanova. He's a guy you want on your team, a guy, that we've talked about. If you go to LA Fitness and you pick him up, you're going to run for most of the day. You're probably not going to lose any games because he's just a dude that's going to find a way to contribute to winning. He doesn't need to score a lot of points. He doesn't need to be, the superstar on a team. He's very comfortable in his role. And as we spent the middle part of this podcast, that acceptance, that embracing, he's not going to bellyache about not starting over RJ Barrett. He's going to excel in the moments, in the minutes he's given. And you need guys like that in today's, to from a good team to a very good team to a great team. He's kind of one of those foundational pieces. The contract's going to be important. He's not a guy you pay anything to keep, but you pay anything within reason. And my very strong hunch is that he seems content and happy in New York, and that both sides will find a very willing compromise, and he'll spend the prime of his career the next 3 or 4 years as a Knick.
Yeah, I mean, this is the guy that the Knicks should be kind of targeting. Like, this is the guy in some way that the Knicks had kind of been looking for. Like, like they had, Bullock, and, they had him for a couple years, and then he went on to Dallas for bigger money. Then they brought in Fournier, and of course that has not worked. Like, they have needed like that glue guy, that, 4th or 5th guy who can kind of, stabilize the team and what he brings to the table. And this guy, he fits Tom Thibodeau, and he fits how the Knicks want to play. So he's absolutely the kind of player the Knicks should be kind of bringing into the fold and trying to keep now that he's on the team. So I'm all for re-signing Josh Hart. I do wonder what the money is, since he declined a $13 million deal. Hopefully, I saw some things saying maybe he just, takes that $13 million, but takes it now for 4 years as opposed to, taking the risk of taking that 1 year deal and something happening to him. But even if he does get a slight raise, I'm hoping it's, in that $15 million range. Once it gets north of that, I thought he'd get a little worrisome. Like he's not a $20 million kind of player. But if they can keep him to like a 3-year, $45 million deal, like I think that's a pretty sweet deal. He's in the prime of his career. He's a durable player. And what's interesting about him is, even though we talk about all the winning things he brings to the table, he's never been to the playoffs. So I'll be excited to see what he does in this postseason, because I watched that game on Sunday and I said, that guy is going to win the Knicks a playoff game.
Yes.
Like his effort, his hustle, his unselfishness, you could see watching that game being like, those are kind of things and the traits that you need to win in the playoffs. And he's going to win them one this season. I guarantee you. So I'm happy he's here. I don't know what it means for some of these other guys, but assuming the deal is right, I think that he's the right fit for this team.
Two things. I hadn't thought about this until we just started talking about it. Yeah, if I had to ballpark a number in my head, I think 4 years for $55 million, probably somewhere in that range, seems about right. And then I think with the Knicks tacking on a team option for that fourth and final season, that's kind of the way that this front office likes to do business. So like 3 years, $45 million guaranteed, and then a 4th-year team option. I think that's somewhere in that ballpark. Knicks would probably preferred closer to 3 years and high 30s, or 3 years and $40 million. Hart's camp will probably push, 4 years, $60 million. Maybe they meet at 4 years, 45, with the team option for year 4. So it's definitely something we'll look into. It. A lot of it depends on where the salary cap set in, what the Knicks do with RJ Barrett, how they handle IQ and all that other stuff. But yeah, just as far as Hart, he's a guy you want around. He's a guy that's going to help you win games. And again, if you're constructing a team to win now, and that's what the Knicks are doing. Again, they're not going to tank next season with Brunson and Randall paired together. You're just not going to be bad enough to get to that really bottom 5 of the league. You're trying to build solid players around them. Hart's a great fit. And yes, and to your other point about Hart winning a playoff game, and you can say that about some other guys. Like if you get a high scoring guard off the bench, Jamal Crawford type, you can say like, yes, these guys you trade for them at the deadline because they could score 37 in a playoff game and win you, or have a 15-point quarter and win you in the third quarter and win you a playoff game. I think even a bigger compliment of Hart may be he's the reason the Knicks will win a playoff series, or like one of the major, like where he's not going to average 20, have a 27-point game, and he's not going to average even 18, 8 and 4, but he's going to do enough in that key stretch in the middle of a fourth quarter in game 1, and then the close of a second half in game 3, and then have the 15-9 and 6 game in a game 7. And you look back at the series and go, holy cow, man, Brunson was awesome. Randall had some huge games, but the Knicks don't win this series without Josh Hart. And that's the type of player Hart is.
And that's the kind of player the Knicks want to keep in the fold. So I'm not surprised with that. So we'll see what happens this offseason. But right now, the word is Josh Hart will be staying in New York long term. But that's going to do it